I'm at Schweitzer Mountain today, still in Sandpoint. I'm at the base here, not the base lodge, but the start of the cross-country trails. I've also got the Prodigio Pro on my feet here, and today I'm gonna be bringing you a full A/B test. Prodigio Pro up against the Mount to Coast T1. Quite a different experience underfoot today already. Wanted to run with the La Sportiva here before I kind of did a little A/B on both feet with a different shoe, just because I haven't had this shoe on foot in a little while here, at least compared to the T1. And it's very different from the shoes I've been running in this week and over the last few weeks or so. Yesterday I ran the McKinnick Trail, quite steep, very rocky. I did that in the North Face Vective Pro 3. Check out that video. Very interesting. Definitely going up and down, pretty steep in that high stack, high energy return shoe underfoot. Gotta make sure I go the right way. Okay. And the day before that, I was at Gold Hill in the Scarpa Spin Ultra 2. Also a great run there. A little less rocky, a little less rugged on that one. Just a very quick stop here. Not too much traffic. This is a two-way trail, so you gotta keep an eye out here. Haven't run in this shoe for quite a while. Just really lacing them up, and half a mile in here, very striking feel that I just feel completely locked from here through the heel all around. Like for me, the fit on this shoe is just perfect. I mean, just feel completely like this, just feels really strapped in, really dialed in. And up front in the toe box, it's definitely wide for me. I have a 10.5 here, and it's just spacious in the forefoot, of course. And I talked about this in my other videos, comp videos, against the Tecton X3. You know, it rounds out here. It's not pointy, it's not narrow. It's just like, for me, an ideal toe box. I think if you're sized correctly in this shoe, I haven't heard many people having problems with the fit. A few here and there, of course. Not every shoe is gonna fit everybody, but I've probably had like 95% positive response and feedback on the fit of this shoe. So yeah, 10.5, full size up for my true to size, half size up for my typical ultra size. E-bikers, they can zip up here pretty quick. He snuck up on me. I think I will probably notice a difference once I get the T1 on one foot and the Prodigio Pro on the other. Again, I've got this in a 10.5 and the T1 in a 9.5. And I do think that's equal sizing. My impression from testing is that forefoot width is gonna be equal or very similar, with the T1 being slightly narrowed and a little more pointy at the front of the toe box, but we'll see if that holds true when I have them both on foot at the same time. If you take a scan through my recent videos on the channel, you can get a flavor of the type of shoes I've been running in and testing recently. Everything's been in sequential order, so you can see I've been running in the Nike Wild Horse 10, the Vective Pro 3, of course, I just mentioned. Also, Spin Ultra 2, Mafate Speed 4 light version. Also, of course, a lot of running in 108K race in the On Cloud Ultra Pro. I would have to say that all of those shoes are probably quite different from the two that I'll be running in today. The T1 and the Prodigio Pro here, both moderate stack, unplated, flexible underfoot shoes with kind of energetic foams, but not crazy bouncy. For example, like the Pro 3, definitely not firm like the Spin Ultra 2, Also not, I don't know, they don't feel as dense as the React X in the Wild Horse 10, and also not as soft as the foam in the Mafate Speed 4. Both of these shoes, this one nitrogen TPU, the other one supercritical PIBA EVA blend, they kind of strike a balance between softness, dynamic feel, without being neither overly soft nor overly bouncy. They're both kind of just in that middle ground there, which I think works really well, especially for training runs. Certainly could be for racing, just depends, you know, what you're doing. Of course, long ultras, a lot of people want a softer feel, maybe a higher, denser cushion, more protection. These may slot in more in the mid-range in terms of distance and duration racing, but pretty much very versatile for any type of training. This is definitely an easier trail than what I've run the past couple days. Yesterday in the Pro 3, very steep, very rocky. This is kind of flowy, gradual incline here. I could definitely feel the shoe feels more nimble, obviously, than the Pro 3 on the way up. It's a lot lighter on foot. Just feel like I'm kind of picking up the feet a little easier, less sinking in with all that cushion. I get more response into the ground compared to the Pro 3, but that's probably fairly obvious. These are very different shoes. The Prodigio Max will be coming out shortly. I'll be able to test that relatively soon, and that would be a shoe that's more in line with a higher stack Pro 3, Tecton X3, Cloud Ultra Pro, those types of shoes. If you haven't gathered at this point by watching some of my reviews and, you know, commenting, all that kind of stuff, I love this shoe. It feels great. I've had a few questions recently about what's my top pick for daily training or just my overall pick. I'm not sure if there were, I don't know, any caveats with that. I get all kinds of questions anyway, but for daily training, it is hard to top this shoe. I mean, if I didn't have to, not have to, but if I wasn't testing so many fun and different types of trail shoes, this would probably be the shoe that I could run in and would put the majority of my daily miles in. It's just, the fit is superb. Like, I don't feel my foot shifting a millimeter inside the shoe. It feels so secure, and climbing here, the width in the toe box, just very comfortable, allows my forefoot to spread, doesn't feel restricted or squeezed, no pressure under the balls of my foot. You know, when your forefoot gets a bit squeezed in a tight toe box, this is just amazing, beautiful. The cushion just right for everyday kind of training, short to mid-distance ultras, maybe a little more if your feet are up to the task, but yeah, just the versatility of this shoe cannot be beat. Getting up here, about 20 minutes in, I'm gonna go a little further up, tight switchbacky section here, and then I'm gonna turn around and go AB with the T1. So it'll be like 35-ish, 40 minutes in this shoe here, then the AB test running. I don't want to go, I mean, it feels so great. Kind of want to just keep going and going, but I like to get to the comparison here. Hit this little intersection here. This is going to be my turnaround. Ooh, I would love to go Further up, I guess to the roundabout trailhead, that looks super fun. I think I'm gonna have to come back here maybe with my Tecton X3s for a test run over next day or two. Right now I'm gonna zip back down that trail, back to the trailhead, get one shoe on each foot, and talk a little bit more about the T1. This, I know from going up, this is gonna be super fun heading back down. Just super fun flying down here. Not technical enough where I have to be super careful, but enough rocks and roots and stuff where I get to have quite a bit of fun hopping around. As you can see, Prodigio Pro is just awesome for this. I forgot my magnetic hose clip on this trip, but I've kind of come up with a new setup for the Bloddle here. I like to have it in the kangaroo pocket when I'm filming and stuff, just so it doesn't slosh around by the mic, and it's just very stable back there. I have room up front for my little camera stuff and gels, but kind of route this hose down through this one on the side here, and there's a magnet up here for the pill pocket kind of thing, and that just works, I guess, at the length that I have it cut at here for this hose. It sticks right on there. It's actually perfect, and I normally have it on the other side, and this is actually better because I can unclip. I don't have to unroute my hose if I need to get something out of the back. So UltrAspire Bloddle here, 27 ounces in the kangaroo pocket with the Alpha pack here. Quick look at both of these shoes before we head out here. Just did 5.2 miles in the Prodigio Pro. Got the Gaiter here for the Mount to Coast. This is new, not out yet. Will be coming out soon. It's really windy here, but those trees, I didn't notice it. Mount to Coast T1 here. Super critical nitro PBA based. This is dual density super critical nitro EVA on the outside carrier, and on the inside super critical nitro TPU with a very thin film. I think this is it, but as you can see, very thin. You won't even notice it at all. This one, no mention of any film or anything like that. This shoe does feel a bit stiffer for sure. Not as flexible, certainly around this area. On its own, I would never call this a stiff shoe, but compared to this one really noticeably flexier, noticeably more contouring this way for sure. This one, it's pretty good actually along this way laterally, but just a little bit stiffer in the middle of the shoe here. We'll see how that feels on the run. Vibram Mega Grip, traction lugs here, friction white here, highly durable. I didn't notice any difference in my testing of both of these shoes on the run. Very similar performance in terms of traction and grip. I don't think you're gonna have a problem with either of these shoes. Just platform side by side, very similar. Touch wider in the heel with the T1. Forefoot's about the same, midfoot's almost exactly the same, so really no difference to speak about there in terms of the ground platform. If you take a look at these toe boxes here, of course, I feel like similar width here. This one looks pointier, and I think it just is a little bit narrower in this section right here. Sometimes I could feel this on my big toe. It looks narrow here, but I don't feel it here. I kind of tend to feel it here. Maybe it's just, I don't know, the shape of the last or whatever. No problems with the Prodigio Pro ever. Again, this, I have a US 10.5. This is US 9.5. So be very careful on sizing. They call this an EU 43, US 9.5. This one here is US 10.5, EU 43.5. So there's something weird going on with the sizing on this one. Also, in another video I talked about that with the Tecton X3. They seem to have it a bit skewed, relatively speaking, with their US and EU sizing. Well, let's get out on the run. Very obvious difference here. Got a Gaiter with the Mountain Coast T1 here, and the Prodigio Pro, of course, has that awesome integrated knit collar. When I change shoes back at the truck there, check my socks. Sidus Anatomic Comfort ankle height, I believe, by the way. Picked these up at TrailCon. Been running in them the past few days. Very nice sock. I like the Sidus sock, and this one has a bit more cushion than the one you see Jim Walmsley and maybe Hayden Hawks in some of the advertisements and stuff. Same kind of look, a little lower height and a little more cushion. Really comfortable sock. Anyway, nothing got into my Prodigio Pro, dirt or debris, all of that. Completely clear on the inside of the shoe. That ankle collar, just love it. I mean, why not in a trail shoe? Mountain Coast's one here, obviously separate attachment, has hook loops on the front and the back, Lycra, pretty lightweight, not really adding much. It's great that they put in integrated loops in the back of the shoe. I don't have to finagle around with worrying about if Velcro is gonna stick or not. It's just another one of those why not things. I could kind of see how the Velcro tab on the heel of the shoe might be a pain in the butt. Maybe for manufacturing, probably not, but you know, maybe for people that don't use them, just catching on stuff, things like that. Just an extraneous piece of material, but maybe trail companies could somehow standardize on having just one of these loops right at the heel. That would just make things so much more easier. Can we get that going? Trail shoe brands. So in this A/B test right here, this may end up being kind of very fine differences between these shoes. I think if you're maybe not particularly picky and you just want a great and versatile, well-rounded trail shoe, I mean, I don't think you could go wrong choosing either of these shoes. I mean, assuming you had the opportunity to maybe try them on side by side, it might be difficult to find retailers like that, or probably impossible, but assuming you had that option or you could order them and have them side by side, I mean, I would really just pick whichever gives you the best feeling. And you might not even be able to tell much difference, but there's a couple small things I'm gonna get into here. I talked about my T1 review. One downside of the shoe was I didn't feel like foothold and security was as good in steeper descents. Just felt my foot sliding a little bit forward on steep downs. Just didn't really feel strapped to the shoe, but really in very steep conditions. As I'm running up right now, same loop I just did in the Prodigio Pro, cross-country trail, rolling, gradual uphill, zero issues at all. Probably coming down won't be an issue at all, but we'll see. I'm gonna have to feel it out on some of the steeper parts. But after I did that initial lacing, I did have to finagle with the lower lace a bit on my left shoe, the T1. I just didn't feel as dialed in the lower kind of middle section of the shoe. Not as much, I would say, natural or inherent foothold as you get with the Prodigio Pro. Just felt like I had to really, not really, but had to pull that lower lace a little bit tighter to get the same level of kind of foothold that I feel with the Prodigio Pro at slightly less lace tension. I think that the Prodigio Pro, and this may vary just based on your foot shape and width, of course, how you like your forefoot to fit. I just feel like the Prodigio Pro just naturally wraps the foot really well, and I get as good a fit with that shoe as I can get with the T1, but I just have to, you know, tug down on that lower lace a little bit more. I flexed both shoes in hand back at the truck. I was actually pretty surprised by how much more flexible the Prodigio Pro was. I really didn't remember that. I recently, a lot more recently, did the full review of the T1, and I thought that was a pretty flexible shoe. Definitely laterally on the forefoot. I remember talking about how it kind of contours pretty well, and that's definitely true. But those are the kind of things that it's hard to really kind of feel out if you only have one or the other shoe, or you're just running primarily in one or the other for a time. You just get used to it. But yes, by the middle of the shoe, it's more stiff, and I don't want to call it stiff in the absolute sense, but the T1 is stiffer under the middle of the shoe than the Prodigio Pro. I'm going up here, so again, not a lot of twisty, turny, lateral, torsional forces as I'm running up here. But I can feel, you know, it just feels a little, definitely stiffer under the T1. It kind of makes the drop maybe feel a little bit more apparent, possibly. It just feels like maybe a little more elevated, and it could just be due to the stiffness. It's only a 4mm drop with the Mount Deco shoe, but the Prodigio Pro, I just feel like just a hair more, and this is just, it's just a feeling, a hair more of flex, a little bit of twist with the shoe under the middle of the foot, which is probably what makes it feel so good on, as I was running down this trail just a few minutes ago. Twisty, turny, pick up your feet, throw your feet this way and that way, you know, lay down some tight footwork coming out of a turn. It just feels really fun in the Prodigio Pro. I'll see how that goes in the T1 on the way back down. I have a feeling that gonna have to be a little more less kind of on the edge with the T1. I want to make sure I have slightly more stable, you know, footsteps, ground, platform underneath the foot in that one. I just checked my measurements. I measured the Prodigio Pro at 33 under the heel, so 6mm drop, that's 33.27, while the Mountain Coast is a healthy 37 that's measured with a 4mm drop, so 37.33. And I think I do feel that before, I was talking earlier, before I even checked the specs, that it felt like with the stiffness under the middle of the foot, it felt like the T1 was a touch higher. And yeah, that's the case. 37.33. I've got it measured 4mm higher under the heel. Definitely feels that way. That's not a huge difference 37 is not major. The Pro 3 I ran in yesterday was 43, and that just felt just massively high. This feels different than that for sure. The Prodigio Pro 4 mil lower at the heel, flexier under the middle of the shoe. That, yeah, it does feel that way. Feels a bit more agile. Feel a little taller in the T1, not in a detrimental way, but maybe over longer distances. Certainly less technical terrain. That cushion advantage may come into play, but I think twisty turny, certainly if you check my Pro 3 video from yesterday's run, the terrain that I was hitting in that shoe, especially in the downhill yesterday, I definitely, of this one, the T1 and the Pro 3, I definitely want to be in the Prodigio Pro for that. Interestingly, the Prodigio Pro drop is 6, while the Mount to Coast is 4, but I feel like the Mount to Coast rides higher. It could be the case that, being that it is 4 mil higher in the heel, it just feels that way. But I don't know. I feel like there's little difference. I would not call the Prodigio Pro as having a higher drop effectively than the T1. I mean, I'd honestly feel or say that it feels lower. Like if you told me the Mount to Coast was 6 and the Prodigio Pro was 4, that would actually feel more accurate to me. But again, could be due to the higher height of the T1 and also that flexibility around the middle of the shoe. Quick check partway up here. Again, full sizing difference between these two, but they are equivalent, 10.5, 9.5. Yeah, probably I don't notice on the way up the narrowness over here. It's definitely a little bit narrower. I would say on flats and, you know, inclines like this, you're not going to notice the difference. I'm going to check back in on the way back down for sure when I do maybe a final wrap up when I get to the bottom after more downhill running in these shoes. I suspect that I'll probably slide forward a little more in this one, and I may feel it a little bit more here. This just, it's really hard to top the Prodigio Pro lockdown. It just, the natural shape of this shoe in this whole area just is great here. The upper is great. You have some Kevlar or Kevlar-ish materials in the mix there. It holds well. We'll see if it can match up on the downhill with the La Sportiva. In terms of midsole feel underfoot, there's not much to put between these two shoes for sure. Talked about it, what I suspected on the way up earlier, and that is the case. They're dynamic, energetic, but not firm, not overly soft, not really soft feeling at all. They just feel like they give a touch of energy and dynamic feel back, which is just really great without going overboard in one direction or the other. I might have said kind of the same exact description earlier, but if I'm repeating it, that's just kind of hammering home the point that these are excellent, versatile, all around trail running midsoles here. Just quick check on the outsoles here. Vibram Mega Grip, of course. Traction lugs on the Mount to Coast. Friction outsole with the La Sportiva Prodigio Pro. Both 4 mil lugs. There's going to be really no difference between these two outsoles. I think you're going to get the same level of performance, durability, all of that. I would not choose between these two shoes based on outsole at all. just ran into my wife in the middle of a trail that neither of us have been on. She rode up the road and came down from higher. I'm at the spot where I turned around before, but I'm gonna head up higher, get a little bit, she said it's steeper, rocky, rootier, so that will be fun going up and down in both of these shoes. So I'll head up a bit, head back down a bit, and we'll see what happens in this matchup. I'm actually a bit surprised that I got up here as quick as I did. It felt longer last time, but it's probably talking more in this second round here. Makes the time go by faster. Training advantage of reviewing shoes on the run. Let's see.
The dogs, look at my dog's making a meal of them. I don't know how to eat them and mountain blueberries and stuff.
Huckleberry lunch. Huh?
Yeah, these are super
yeah.
clean. You won't even have to wash them. Nice pile. I'll probably be back up these areas again tomorrow. Bigger containers.
Oh yeah, I gotta bring a freaking jar up here. He's just picking them off. Huckleberries. Yum. Not much to put between these two shoes on the way up here again. I might even give slight advantage to the T1 here. Not right at this moment. Kind of in a flat now. But I'd say now that I'm on a incline here, that's a little bit of stiffness in the middle of the T1. Also, I have to say, the drop feels effectively higher. I mean, the heel's higher in the T1. Just feels a touch better on a continuous uphill grade. But, you know, it'd be different on the downhill, obviously, once I turn around. But really, nothing to pick between these two shoes on the way up here. I just detect a touch of extra squeeze in the front of the T1 toe box. I feel like the space at the forefoot is often more important in terms of comfort than at front by the tip of the toes, you know, within reason. But I just feel at the front of the toe box, I could feel my toes a little bit more pressed up against each other in the T1. Certainly as I get into the toe off, pushes those toes together, I feel like definitely have more splay and room for spreading with the Prodigio Pro. It's more comfortable, at least for me. If you have a narrow foot, it could be a different story. All right, little split here. Bikers that way, we going this way. A little bit more rooty in this section over here. I could definitely feel Prodigio Pro feels squatter to the ground, lower to the ground. You know, the base is not wider, the platform that is, but it's the last of the upper. Makes my foot feel wider on the ground, a bit more stable, a little bit of a taller feel on the run, slightly taller in the T1. I just feel more grounded in the Prodigio Pro, which is good or bad depending on what you're looking for. The extra stack cushion, there's definitely feels like more under the middle of the foot and the heel in the T1. So if you tend to maybe sit back a bit more, maybe heel strike a bit more, or just land direct center of the foot and you want that support, or at least that higher level of cushion under those areas, T1 have the advantage there. Both are well contoured under the arch. I like the underfoot feel. Don't feel any flat spots under the middle of the foot. I like the setups here. I do think T1, maybe a hair more support under the arch. Again, just could be the fact that it is a little higher. The heel is 4 mil higher, but it does feel like there's more support under the arch there. Probably makes sense as they're, looking at this as a very long, ultra distance shoe. The geometry feels more forward oriented, I would say. Like wants to get you into that forward lean, be efficient, keep rolling, whereas the Prodigio Pro feels like a little more variable, a little bit more of a kind of 4-wheel drive ride, 4 corners of the shoe flexing underfoot in all directions, a little bit more lateral movement and feel underfoot, which I like, really fun. A little bit more of a climb here, heading higher up, nothing crazy like yesterday on McKinnick. Just winding my way up to the roundabout trailhead, and that'll be my turnaround point. But yeah, the way back down, it's not technical enough to be overly cautious as I had to be yesterday in the Pro 3. This should just be a ripping fast downhill, as fast as I want to hit it. These shoes are really similar enough underfoot. It's not really an issue at all running like 10 miles with 2 different shoes on, if anybody's thinking about that aspect. Really, they're just so similar that not too much of a difference underfoot, no problem at all. Missed a turn there, had to double back just a second. There's a road up here on my left. I think that's the trailhead. Yeah, I guess that's roundabout. Ooh, Schweitzer. Wow, look at that over there. Super fun. If I had more time, I would head right up there. Looks cool. So I guess one of those over there, Sky House. Let's see. You are here, around about 4,220. I came up this kind of way, cross-country trail, started at 2,550. So that's my route. I am gonna, I guess, skirt around, I don't know, whatever way I came this way back down. Ow! Ow! Just got stung. Ow! Man! If it's not dogs, it's bees. Holy cow. I wonder if that was... No, I think I had the camera pointed at my feet. So, I'll be hightailing it on back down, just in case, but never had a problem with a bee sting before. I don't know what kind of bees they got up here, though. But... there's a zip on down, no stops. I don't think it'll stop me from talking, interviewing though. I'm gonna push through it. I do detect just a higher heel platform, kind of landing area, more pronounced with the T1. Just runs a little bit taller. I feel, again, similar to the uphills with the Prodigio Pro. I feel just more squat on the ground, like more direct connection with the 4 corners of the shoe. The T1 just feels a little bit of a rear to forward leaning geometry, which is not bad. That could be what you're looking for. If that's the case, then yeah, great shoe. Obviously, you could see me running here. I'm managing both shoes very well. Not an issue at all. Again, I'm probably splitting hairs between these shoes, but that is one of the differences. If the technicality ramped up a bit, and certainly if the steepness ramped up, I'd definitely feel more comfortable in a Prodigio Pro. But maybe in the other direction, if it was more mixed, more flattish, more moderate, certainly less twisty terrain, I think the advantages of efficiency, the geometry of the T1, the smoothness, again, 4 mil higher stack, front and back, presumably an extra 2 up front because they only list a 4 mil drop with the T1. That'll come into play over longer distances, be advantageous for the Mount to Coast shoe. Check real quick. Little bite, nothing crazy. Here we are again. Head back down. Bee sting is fine, so no urgency here. Just a short close-up before I head on down. It hasn't been crazy steep. It's been just moderate descent. So I have noticed at times, again, the inside of my left toe here pressing up against here at times. If it were steeper, like very steep, something I talked about in my full review of the T1, I just feel like my foot slides a little bit, and even now I could kind of inch my foot forward inside of the upper. I can't really, have a hard time. The Prodigio Pro is really holding my foot here, so I have a hard time even scooching my foot forward, standing here. Here I could really just kind of pull my toes forward. So if this were steeper, like the last 2 days runs, I would definitely be getting more pressure, like sliding into the front of this toe box here. So generally speaking, I would say steeper terrain, this would be the pick. Again, the geometry I talked about here just feels like a little bit better forward oriented with the T1. Just maybe more efficient, straight ahead. This one more kind of twisty in all directions, more suitable. I think the stuff that I'm running on today, I'm having a ripping great time in both of these shoes. By the way, it's totally fine in both of these shoes, but I think if it were stepped up a bit in terms of technicality and twistiness, I feel a little bit better in this shoe. Almost ran off without my stride pod. That is why I wore the Prodigio Pro on my right foot here, just to keep the stride pod more easily attached. You know, with the Gaiter over here, I could squeeze it in, but there's no particular, that's the reason why I chose Prodigio on the right and T1 on the left. The stride pod data field does give me a warning on my watch. It was kind of beeping, pod detached, pod detached. When I started the watch, it was obviously on the ground right next to me. So that's good. I try to sometimes take it off when I do the close-ups, and I should always put it in my pocket. Sometimes I leave it on a post or on the trail. Final thoughts here on the AB comparison. Mount to Coast T1 La Sportiva Prodigio Pro. I pretty much covered everything from the beginning. Sizing, full size up for comparative sizing between the two. I've got a US 10.5 in the La Sportiva and a 9.5 in the Mount to Coast. On the run, feel underfoot with the midsole foam, not much between the two, very close. Just, I think it's a difference in a little bit the geometry, a little bit the ride. I think the T1 is more forward-oriented geometry, seems suited and likely intentionally designed for longer distances over easier, you know, say light to moderate types of terrain. You could definitely do stretches of technical terrain in the shoe, no problem. But I do feel that little bit of foot slippage in this one, so it wouldn't be my favorite shoe for very steep terrain. It also rides a little bit higher. Stack is a little bit higher than the Prodigio Pro, so you're just a little bit taller, gotta be a touch more careful. The Prodigio Pro, on the other hand, just great all around. I would say it's a little bit on the other end of the spectrum, leaning more moderate to technical and highly technical. It's just more flexible underfoot, more positive ground feel and control on the run. I think forefoot width is somewhat equal, but it just feels more well held in the La Sportiva. So I think I just get a more positive feel out of that width in the Prodigio Pro than the T1. Again, T1, a little sharper up front, the front of the toe box. You know, if you have a narrower foot, T1 may work better for you. Of course, T1's lacing is nice because you could take advantage of those dual zones and adjust them how you like, but I find really good zonal tension with the Prodigio Pro. No problem at all with just the laces. There is no water up here on this route. That's an issue that I think would be a positive for the T1. Certainly would drain out quicker. The La Sportiva has an inner booty, kind of a full booty inside of that power wire upper. So it does feel like it holds a bit more water and for longer. T1, definitely when I tested it, it dried out really fast. There's not much, it's kind of a single layer, matrix-esque Kevlar type material, just non-absorptive, pretty much, maybe except for the knit areas of the tongue there, but that's really not a lot. I did not mention the weight difference between these shoes. It's actually, I don't have it written down, but very slight, if any. It may be exactly the same, or just by memory, maybe a couple tenths between the two shoes. Not noticeable on the run at all. I've run this whole time. Again, gonna be like probably 10 miles in total, and I can't tell which shoe is heavier. They are about the same. So which shoe should you pick between these two? I don't know. That's my answer. It's kind of a toss-up. For me, personally, I would go, I don't know. Prodigio Pro, probably. I just always have a preference for flexibility, and the flex of this shoe combined with the moderate, just enough cushion, not high stack, not off balance. It's just great, along with the fit. Again, the cushioning of the T1 feels so similar, upper, so similar. It's just, I don't know, I like the wider feel of the Prodigio Pro, but they're so close. Like, again, if you could try both of them on side by side, I would go purely based on which feels better. If you have a narrower foot, you might like the T1. If you're going through a lot of water, you might like the T1. I don't know, maybe heavy, humid areas, sweating, that kind of thing, stuff doesn't dry. The T1 is probably going to be better. The La Sportiva may hold weight in that booty type of upper. I don't know, I'm just kind of throwing out thoughts here. So I don't think there's a conclusive pick between the two. Obviously, I've reviewed these shoes already, and I did not have to bring either of these shoes on the trip, at least as far as keeping up with review content and stuff, but I did. So that just goes to show these are clearly in my rotation, and definitely 1 and 1A in terms of versatile all-around trail shoes that you could add to your trail running quiver. So, as you know, I've already done a full A/B comparison between the Prodigio Pro here and the Hoka Tecton X3. So when I talk about versatility of the Prodigio Pro and also the T1 here, that just goes to show I'm discussing these shoes as kind of moderate, all around type of daily trainer, if you will, shoes. Whereas the Tecton X3, I clearly think is a long ultra 100-mile type shoe. And I did do an A/B comp between those two. So the T1 is also clearly in that range, I guess you would say the lower end of the long ultra range, although I do think there were several Mountain Coast athletes that did run Western States in the T1. So, you know, it's all personal preference, what you can handle and the ride and the feel that you like in a shoe. I think T1, maybe it's closer to the X3. It has a Piva foam, which is similar to the X3. It's also a little higher in stack than the La Sportiva here, closer to the X3. So again, these three shoes, great shoes. And, you know, I'm just trying to highlight the versatility of these two shoes here. So thank you for watching once again. Oh man, I've got a lot of really good shoes to test. I mean, a lot of potential A/B testing. Let me know, as usual, what you want to see down in the comments. I love doing this type of running and testing. It's just a lot of fun. So check out humblerunning.com again. Subscribe to my newsletter there. Every 2 weeks I give kind of a wrap up of the content over the past couple weeks and what's in the hopper, what I'm currently testing. You might want to sign up right now because I'm away for a couple weeks now on a trip. When I get back home, I am going to have a pile of awesome stuff to test. So you do not want to miss my next 1 or 2 newsletters probably. And I'll be after my Beaverhead 100K. So I'll be able to really dig into some testing. And not that I'm not filming and testing a lot as it is. Anyway, like and subscribe, all that good stuff, and hope you have a great day out on the trails.